Hello everyone, I am Rod and I am the game design instructor for the Academy of Entertainment Arts over at Dixie Hollands High School. If you are one of my students, it's Mr. Flowers to you, and welcome to this video tutorial. Hey guys, in this tutorial we're going to look at how to add music and sound to our game. If you take a look at the project here, this is the same project file for the room transitions and the camera demo that we did. Go ahead and just run that. And as you can see, it's the same project file. I have my little character here, camera set up, and I can go between the rooms, do some jumping. So if you've already done like the room transition or the camera project, you can continue using it. If you have your own project and you want to add sound to it, you can kind of follow this anyway. Go ahead and close this. And before we add some sounds, I want to kind of determine where the sounds are going to go. You can do a sound pretty much anywhere you want. So like I have these objects here, the door object, I have the player, my warp. You can have your walls generate sound. Or you can control sound inside of your game object. It doesn't really matter where you put them, just as long as you know sort of the rules of how sound works. And sound effects are a little bit different than music. So I'm going to jump into my game object here, make sure I have that. And go to my step event here. And before I start adding any like sound effects or music or whatever, I'm going to pick a spot inside of my little state machine here. I'm in my in-game piece. And anywhere's fine. You can do it above or below, whatever code's here. I'm going to start this here. I'm going to just call this play music. And all I'm going to do is say audio underscore play sound. I'm going to do open parenthesis, close parenthesis, and a semicolon. I'm going to get an error just because I have nothing in here. But what I want you to do is after you write this function, go ahead and middle mouse click on it. So go ahead and middle mouse click. And it's going to open up the wiki for you. And down here it says like little back button. Click on the little audio, and it'll bring you to the sound page, so you can kind of read up on how sound modules work, the difference between like an emitter and a listener, and like the groups and the buffer and all that good stuff. Good things to know as you're going to be making sound. And then your audio functions are up here. We have some basic ones and the advanced ones. So I'm going to go ahead and open the basic. And there's a big list here of all the different things, like if a sound exists. So if you want to test and see if a sound is currently playing or whichever, you can check it through there. You can check it by name or whatever not. You can, of course, audio play sound is what we're going to be using. This one will play a sound. It'll add it to your list of sounds that are currently playing. You have ability to pause, resume, all, and so if you pause one, you can resume it. You can stop a sound. You can stop all sounds playing. You can check if a sound file is currently playing, which is kind of cool. You can check if it's currently paused, and you can, of course, if I come down to my advanced options here, you can also pick specific parts of a track that's currently playing. So if you have like, you want to pick the middle of a track, you can play it. You can get sound from parts of a track. You can affect the pitch of sound, which is really nice because if you have a limit of sounds, like if you're using the student version, you can only have like 8 or 9, I think it's like 10 sounds actually in the student version. And you can affect the pitch to make different sound effects or change music slightly. That way you don't have to exceed the limit that you have. Let's see. Audio sound gain. This is one for increasing and decreasing the volume of your sound. And a few other things here. You can modify channels and whichever. And if you click on one of these, like if I click on play sound, where are we at? Audio play sound. Of course, it brings you into a general description. It kind of tells you how it works, what the components are, what the index, priority, and loop are. So for like audio play sound, it does have an index inside the function. This is what it's going to be calling an index, a priority, and a loop. And the index is the actual sound file that you've loaded into your game. And what priority does is a sound card has a limit to the number of sounds that it can play. I think most newer cards play 16 or more sounds. Some of the older cards, they have a limit between like 8 or so. And that's how many simultaneous sounds a card can play. If and those of course are broken up into different channels. So let's say you have your maximum limit of like 8 sounds, and every single slot is used. Those will be on a priority list, and the one that has a higher priority will stay on the list before the next one drops off. So if a new sound plays and the list is full, the oldest one gets dropped off. But if you change the priority, then it'll guarantee that the one with the highest priority will stay on the list. So if like that one happens to be on the bottom of the list, it'll keep that one on there. And then the loop, of course, checks if it's going to be looping or not. So if it's music, it'll probably loop. If it's just a sound effect, it probably will not. Okay, so that's the general stuff. I'm going to jump back into my game object here. And for this to work, of course, we want to put a sound in. So we're going to have to add a sound effect. So I'm going to go up to sounds here, and right-click, create a sound. And I use a naming convention. If it's a music file, I prefix it mus underscore and then whatever the music file is. If it's a sound effect, then I do sfx and then whatever the file is. Since we're loading in music, I'll do mus. And this is going to be my music for my first room. So if I come down to my rooms here, and you can see my rooms have a label on them. This is room 0 and room 1. It's a good practice to name the music file something that matches whatever the room is. So if it's like forest room, then you would say, music forest, beginning or ending or whatever, or a boss battle or whatnot. But I'm going to do music underscore room 0. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and find a sound. So right here, I'm going to go ahead and load it. And I'm going to pick a loop here. Now, you can pick whatever sound you like, sound files that you have or whatnot. I'm just going to pick one out of my library here. I'm just going to go ahead and play it. I apologize if my voice gets a little bit echoey, because I'm recording, in order to record audio internally, I have to have it record from the system, but it also picks up on the mic, so it kind of gets a bit of a feedback on there. But the sound is in. I'm going to go back to my object game here. And where it says audio plays sound, I will go ahead and just add the sound file, so mus underscore room 0. And then the next thing it wants to know is the priority. If I scroll this down here, select this, you can see the audio plays sound. It has the sound ID, that's the sound file. The priority, we discussed that just a second ago. So I'm going to set this at 0. That's the default priority. And then the loop, this is going to be a music file, so I'm going to say loop is true. And there you go, you can see everything cleared away, and we can go ahead and play this. So what we just experienced there, that wonderful sound effect, is the fact that we had written this in a step event. So if I come up here and you see we're in a step event, so a step event runs every tick or every step. So once the system reads all the code here, it says, yeah, I'm going to do this, you have to do this, I'm going to play a sound. It gets down to the bottom of the list, and then it goes back to the top. And it starts again, I'm going to do this, 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 play a sound. But it does that every tick, and there's about 30 ticks a second or so, depending on the clock cycle. So every time it passes, it plays a new sound, and it just fills our stack, our list of sounds that a sound card can play. So if it's 8, all 8 are filled. If it's 16, all 16 get filled within a few ticks. And they're all playing independently, and you get to hear that wonderful mess on top of each other. So what we can do is we can tell this to only play the sound if a sound is not currently playing. Now if you look at, we go into our audio play sound here, go back to my list of stuff, there is a function that checks if a sound is playing. If I click on that, it says this function will check the given sound to see if it is currently playing. The sound can be either a single instance of a sound, the index individual, being played, stored in the variable using audio play sound or play sound at, whichever. So this will check if it is currently playing, and you just give the index value. So the index is, of course, its name, but the index is also stored in an array. So the first one here in the list is going to be position 0. So you really could just type 0 here, and it would get this one, and it would still play. So for example, in this audio play sound, if I were to, actually I'll do that in just a second. We're going to go ahead and run that that function, audio, what was it, is playing. And we're going to pass the sound ID there, so music, room 1, or room 0, sorry. And we're going to actually check this as a we're going to actually check this as a if statement. So I'm going to say if. I'm going to get rid of this semicolon. That doesn't need to be there. I'll say if, and I want to see if it's not currently playing. So if not this sound playing, then it'll play the sound file. And there we go. The sound is playing and it is looping just fine. There you go. Alright, we'll go ahead and close this now. Close that. So that works. It's pretty cool. But the this function here, it doesn't care about the list. So if I put multiple sounds in here, it will allow 2 different sounds to play at the same time. So if you're trying to run 2 separate pieces of music, this one probably won't do what you want it to do. So we're going to actually write our own variable for this, but I want you to note this is here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and, to show you that, let's go ahead and add our next sound piece. I'm going to go to my music room. Let's go ahead and create a second one. Let's do mus underscore room 1, kind of match my names there. And with this one, I'm going to grab a new sound. And I'll do loop 2. Again, you can just pick whatever sounds you like from whatever files that you have. Let's go ahead and... Alright, so here's that track. And that's kind of creepy. Do the same thing. I can say if not audio is playing, music room 1, then I can do audio play sound, music room 1, comma 0, and true for if it's looping. And I can kind of do this. I could put an else here. I could say if this is this, and then else that, whichever, and whatever. But you can only, just to kind of show you, it will play both at the same time. So if I go ahead and run them both, and as you can hear, they're both playing on top of each other. So instead of that, I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to create a couple variables that help us check to see if it's playing and to turn it off when it's not. So when you first enter a room, you want to check to see if the sound you want to play is currently playing, and if it's not, turn all the other sounds off. So I'm going to create a if statement. I'm going to say if room is room 1, or sorry, room 0. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this piece of code here. And we'll have that. And then I can say else if room is equal to room 1 on the list. I'm going to wrap this piece. So now I have it that if I'm in room 1, or my first room, room 0, then it's going to do this, right? And if I'm in the next one, it'll do that. All right, let's go ahead and play this and see what happens. So if I play it now, it should play this one and not the other. Alright, and you can hear the sound playing. I'm going to go ahead and walk through the room here. And now as I'm in both rooms, you can hear them both playing. Go ahead and stop that. So the reason it plays both is whenever you go to play a sound, this gets added to the list of sounds or channels that your sound card has. And then when you get to the next room, it checks and says, well, this one's not playing. Right? It says, oh, well, this one's not playing yet. We can go ahead and add this one to the list. But we don't want to add both sound pieces to the same list. We want to have only one music piece playing. So we're going to have to turn one off as the other one is on. And for that, I'm going to create a variable. I won't use this audio play function anymore. I'm going to make my own. And I was going to call this is music playing. So is music playing. So is music playing. And then I'm going to go ahead and wrap this. So there's that. So it's going to check if the music is not playing, it's going to set the variable and say is music playing. That'll become true. And we will play the sound that we want. But we also want to check to see if the sound that we want to play is the one that's currently on the list. So we're going to say if current track, this will be a variable we create, so if current track is not equal to the track that we want, which will be, we'll say music room 0. So if our current track is not, so make sure we're in the right room, so if we're in room 0 and the current track is not the music for room 0, then we're going to stop the sound. So I add some braces here, and then we're going to do audio stop, not all, but stop sound, and then the sound ID. So we're going to do the current track, so where the current track is. So if the current track is not this, then we're going to stop the current track, and then we're going to say is music playing. That will be now false, and we will set the new track. So current track will now be set to music underscore room 0. So if it's not the track that we want, we'll stop it. We will say that the music is no longer playing, and then we will set the new track. And then it's going to come down to this one. We're going to separate that off because these ifs are not connected here. And then it's going to check, is the music currently playing? If it's not, then it's going to say, okay, we're going to play the music, and it's going to play whatever the current track is. So I'm going to take current track, I'm going to use that because that's going to store my variable now, so current track. So it's going to get whatever sound file, and that'll play here. And then we can take this, we're going to copy this. I'm going to come down to this room 1 piece, and I'm just going to go ahead and delete that piece, and I'm going to paste in the new one. So we'll have the if current music is playing, this will be music for room 1, and this will be music for room 1, and then it'll check, and then play the track. Now for these to play, these variables need to be created. So before that, let me go check what my error is. Unexpected syntax error. Dun, 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 dun. Where are you at? That works, music. Two parentheses. I don't need that one. That means there's 2 down there as well. Okay. So whenever you create a variable, you have to set it in your create event. So I'm going to do is music playing, and currently the music is not playing, so I'll say false, and then my current track will just be whatever piece I want to play when I start. So I can do music 0 or whatever. So do music room 0. Now remember that this is stored in an index, and the index list basically is the first one is actually 0. So I could really do this and it would still be legal. And if I wanted to play this one, I could just say 1 and it would check the sound list and play that 1 as well. But I'm going to call the name. That way I'm not confused. So there we go. And then let's go ahead and play this and see what we get. I suppose I should say we should hear what we get. Alright, so we're in and you can hear the music's playing. So I'm going to go over to the next room now. As the room fades out. So you can see that it waits for the whole room to load before it changes the music, right? So that works. That gives you, sorry, I think I'm echoing again. That works. That gives us the ability to turn off a piece of music in between one area and the next, which is really cool. And this will work, but it does not do exactly what I want it to do, which is, if you notice as we go through the door, go ahead and run that again just so you can hear what I'm getting at. So as we go through, you know, the sound's kind of playing, right? And it waits for it to stop, right? And I've played a lot of RPGs and side-scroller kind of games like that where you go from one to the next, and usually the sound will stop as you enter the door. And then as the new room fades in, it'll fade in the new sound with it. So that's what we're kind of going to achieve here. We want it so it'll fade out as we enter the door and then fade back in. Stop that piece right there. And we're going to modify this piece that we just wrote. And you're like, oh, geez, why would you write this all just to change it? Well, this is just to show you that you can put this pretty much anywhere you want, but you can control how the sound works by modifying its positioning and its timing and all that good stuff. So the piece that we need to be here is to check if music is currently playing. So I'm going to come down to here, and this is going to check, so is music playing? Yes, it's going to check it. So I'm going to go ahead and remove all the stuff above this. And measure everything below to about here. I'm going to keep that break. We need that break in. Clear that out. I'm going to move this back. Clean it up because I'm OCD. So it'll still check if the music is playing. And it'll, if it's not, it'll play the sound. But then as we enter our transition, we're going to want this to stop. So I'm going to go into our room transition enter. And I'm going to tell this thing to stop playing. So I'm going to do audio stop sound. I'm going to do my current track. And I'm going to do is music playing. I will say it is no longer playing, so false. And then my current track will be given the music file that I want it to have. But how do I know what music file I want it to have? Well, just like we did with our warp, where we told the player what room it was going to be in when we got there, we can do that in our warp and tell it what sound it should also play. So I'm going to add a new variable here. I'm going to call this next track. Once we get our next track, we will then come back into our room exit and we'll check if the music is playing and all that good stuff. So right here where it says is music playing and it gets that information, I'm going to go ahead and copy this piece. And inside here after my draw alpha, I'm going to paste that in. Make sure you don't lose your break, you need those. And I'll go ahead and title this. This is going to be restart sound, or I can say play new sound. I'll say play new sound. Play new music. That works. This is going to be stop music from previous room. So it's going to stop previous room, it's going to load the new track, and then it's going to start it over again. And then this one here, this one will only play when basically we start the game. This will be the one that triggers it to play the first time around. Okay, but we need to set up that other variable. So I'm going to come into my create event, and I'm going to have my current track set to there. I'm going to do my next room, or sorry, next track. That's going to be my music, room 1. That'll work. Now it's important to note that it doesn't really matter which ones you put here, because we're going to assign that value later. That's fine. So we have is music playing, and it's going to, if it's not, it'll go true, and then it'll check that. And then down here, it'll get the track. So where do we get this track from? Well, we're going to get that from the game, from the warp object. So I'm going to open up the room here. And in the room, we have these warp objects, right? So whenever I hit this door piece, it tells me what room I'm going to and then where I'm going to be. But it's also going to tell me now, if I open up the creation code, we can also tell it what track it should play. So I'm going to say, right now I'm going to target room is going to be room 1, so the track it's going to want to play will be the music for room 1. And to get that, I'm just going to call the next track piece from my object game. So object game dot, and this is going to be next track. And that's going to set to the value of our music for room 1. Simple enough. I'm going to go ahead and copy that. I'm going to do that for the other door as well. So open this one up. And target room is room 1, so the music is going to be the music for room 1. Let's go ahead and close that piece. And I'm going to do that for the other room as well. So I'm going to go to room 1 and open up this door. This one, creation code. This one's going to room 0, so the music is going to be set to room 0. Okay. Grab this one. Same deal, going to room 0, so the music should be set to music for room 0. Now let's test and see if that's going to work. Go ahead and play it. Alright, so the music starts up as usual. And let's go to the next room here. And the music stops and then fades in. Alright, so that's the goal. Let's try going to the other door now. It stops and fades in. Alright. So let's go ahead and exit that. And go back to my game object. So that's really all there is to it. It's really adding music. You just want to make sure that whenever you're going through a different room or going through a different door, you just check if the sound that you want to play is playing. So you can say, is music playing, whatever, and then you can pass that through a variable if you want to, and then run it. Just remember that if it's in a step event, that you do have to check and make sure that it's only going to play one time, which is really what this does. This is music playing only allows this to play one time. That's all this is here for. Okay, but if it is something that does not loop, you can play it wherever. So on to our sound effects piece, right? Because we need to add one sound effect to illustrate that point. So I'm going to go to my sounds here. I'm going to create a new sound. And this is going to be SFX, and I'm going to call this jump. So that's going to be the sound effect that I hear when my character jumps. And sorry if it got echoey there. Two things recording at once. Go ahead and open that up, and what can I play when the character jumps here? So in my sound effects here, I could play you know, an explosion if you want to hear that, or a creature or whatever. Laser beam I think is a little bit quiet. I'm going to go ahead and grab this bonus item sound effect. I'll go ahead and open that up. And this is what this sounds like. good enough, yeah. Now go into my player, and I'm going to have my player make this sound when it jumps. So if I go into my player step event here, I have this piece that says jump. So whenever I hit the space bar, my character jumps, right? So I'm going to go ahead and just wrap this up. So add a brace here and a brace there. And all I got to do is say audio play sound, and then whatever the sound's called. So sfx underscore jump and a priority. Well, I want my player to always hear when he's jumping. So I'll go ahead and give this a priority 1, right? Just so we can have a different priority. You can see how that works. And then I'm going to set this to false because it does not loop. And there we go. And if I play this, we should hear that sound effect whenever the character jumps. Let's try a jump here. Yeah, it sounds good to me. Alright, let's go to the next room. And of course the sound carries through here as well. Alright. That's kind of cool. If you want to modify a sound, you can make a sound louder or quieter. You can do it to music or whichever. You can say audio sound gain, and whatever the music file or the audio file's name is. The level, so I come down here, audio sound gain, the level is how loud it's going to be. So if I do 2, this is going to be twice as loud. 1 is the default, 0 is no sound. So 1 is default, and I'm going to go twice as loud. So it's going to be a little bit loud. And then you can set a time value, so it can gain that sound over a period of time, or it can lose it over a period of time, or whichever. I'm going to say 0, that's going to be instant. You can hear that when we play it, so go ahead and play. See how loud that is. Hopefully it doesn't hurt your ears. Alright, well, that doesn't sound too much different. Alright, go ahead and exit that. You can really ramp it up if you want to, though. And then, if you want to change the pitch of the sound, you can do audio, sound, pitch. And you can do the sound effects file, the sound file name, and then your pitch. So 1 is normal pitch, so whatever it's going to currently sound like by default. Anything greater than 1 is going to be higher pitch. Anything lower than 1 will be a lower pitch. So I can say 2, and we can kind of hear what that sounds like. Kind of sounds like somebody's sliding on a banana, right? For a sound effect. And if I make this lower, let's put this down to, I'll do 0.2. Go ahead and run that. Alright, and that one's kind of like a sci-fi noise, or like a spaceship, like full sound. And if you wanted to, you could change those dynamically. You could tell this to pick a different sound value or a different pitch value every time. To do that, you could use a choose or a random. GameMaker has like random, like range. Does no longer have that. Random range. So you could pick a range of values you could do, or you could have it choose value. So we'll say choose in this case, and I'll do 0.2 for the low end, 0.5, 0, then we'll do 1, and then I'll do 1.5, and then 2. So it'll choose between these at random as we go through, which is kind of cool. You can choose up to 16 different options if you want. And check my parentheses here. I need one more parenthesis. Alright, and yes, that's a little bit different. A couple times they come out the same, but you can hear that there's a different pitch, you know, almost every time. Because it does generate at random, sometimes it gets the same pitch twice, but for the most part it's going to try to grab something different, which is really nice. If you have like other sound effects that need to vary, you can set it up that way, and it's kind of neat. Especially since the student version of GameMaker 2 is limited on how many sounds you can have, so you can get a lot for a little in this case. Anyway, that's how to add sound effects to your game. Hopefully this has been helpful to you, and I will see you guys in the next video.